Welcome to the ACC Panic Room. I'm Joe Ovies. That's Lauren Brownlow. I think the last time we did one of these, Lauren, was when the other big name coach in the Triangle decided to call it a career, and then they transitioned to the hand-selected guy, Roy Williams, to Hubert Davis. Find out today that Mike Krzyzewski is going to retire. Unlike Roy Williams, who just walked away and went immediately to a golf course, Lauren, Mike Krzyzewski is doing one last season, while John Shire is going to be the coach in waiting. I thought some of the concerts that we're seeing at Walnut Creek or PNC Arena were going to be tough tickets to get. No. The Coach K retirement tour is going to be the toughest ticket to get at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
In a way, I'm glad, and I wish we'd gotten this with Roy. But I also understand why each coach made the decision that they made. It's very fitting with both of their personalities. And I think that that's good. But I still would have loved to have had one more year for Roy to get some closure and maybe he doesn't want the adulation, but he deserves it. And it would have been cool to see him get it on the way out the door. But that's just not Roy's bag. He'd rather go straight to the golf course, which is fine. Coach K doesn't play golf. He really only gardens. In fact, I have no clue what he's going to do. Maybe he'll talk about it tomorrow.
Roy Williams was asked about Mike Krzyzewski's retirement plans while he was coming off the golf course. Roy Williams was at the Pro-Am at the TPC Wakefield for the Rex Hospital Open. And I'm sure he's walking up. He's like, oh, man, I got to talk about this now. So I guess let's actually start with a variety of topics related to Mike Krzyzewski deciding that, you know what, this upcoming season's going to be it. We'll start with the obvious one. Are you surprised that this upcoming season will be the last season for Mike Krzyzewski?
Less so than with Roy, and not because I thought Kay was imminently retiring, but I think, hashtag sources, you hear some things and you hear some things about the way Coach K sort of reacted to Roy's retirement and some things that he had to say. And you're like, interesting. And so that kind of got my brain turning. And then again, the thing is, when Roy retires on April Fool's Day, okay, the day after you get your second COVID shot, right, it's difficult to be super shocked by a 70-plus-year-old coach retiring after that. In fact, I legit had taken notes for this. Mm-hmm. I had notes in one of my apps, was all right, I got to get ready for this because it's going to happen. And we weren't ready. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the Roy thing. It's oh no, I got to throw together a story about Roy. I had some things ready for Coach K, thankfully. And so, I was less surprised. I certainly didn't think it was coming this soon, but it's not nearly as surprising to me as the Roy news was.
No, the Roy Williams news surprised me simply from the perspective of I did not think that the pandemic season was going to be the year he wanted to walk away. Right. I thought he want one more normal season in front of a full Smith Center, that kind of stuff. Not telling people he was going to do it. Let's just have a normal season. Then I'll reassess.
Yes,
Roy Williams was fed up with the state of college basketball. That was one of the reasons why he decided to call it a career. And he also had a guy in Hubert Davis, I guess, who was kind of a coach in waiting. Now that we look at this in retrospect, it had been building up so that Hubert Davis could take that job over. It wasn't a very long coaching search. Mike Krzyzewski is actually following the plan that I thought would make a lot of sense for somebody like Kay or Roy. You coming out of the pandemic year, you think to yourself, do you really want to keep doing this at your age? But you also want to have a normal season. You want to be back. You want to have it all taken in one last time, a full Cameron Indoor Stadium. Because you got to remember, they had no fans at Cameron Indoor Stadium this year. Even when they were starting to let people back in, they just had zero people there, not even family. Duke's family was actually able to see their players play when they went to other places, including PNC Arena. So I think that factors in. But it's also important to note that Coach K is walking away because he's also fed up. Now, I think he's fed up for different reasons. Whereas I think Roy Williams was ready to move on because of the transfer portal and one and dones and lack of continuity. He wanted to keep doing it his own particular way. And when he realized it wasn't going to work for him anymore, he was just, fine, I'll let somebody else do this. I'm not going to do it. Mike Krzyzewski's always been about adapting. And it's always been about keeping up with the times. I think he was fed up, and I guess we'll find out more in the press conference. I think he was fed up with the lack of leadership from the NCAA. He was always putting himself in a position to advocate for college basketball, but nobody picked up the slack. The NCAA never picked up the slack. when he's there in December talking about what are we doing here in a pandemic basketball season, he ends up getting roasted because of the context of having lost a couple basketball games. But his overall points were absolutely valid. What the hell are we doing here? Where's the leadership? And I think that's ultimately with name, image, and likeness and the transfers and everything else. I think he just was kind of like, you know what? If they're not going to make a Zara college basketball, if they're not going to invest the way like I want this game to, like if I'm going to ride for college basketball, but they're not, then I'm not quite sure how much longer I want to do it.
Well, the other thing is, like, imagine having Zion Williamson play for you and it be like 3 years later and there's still no movement on name, image, and likeness. Like, I'm just saying.
That's tough. That's
and
tough.
I don't, for the record, y'all, I don't care if Zion Williamson got paid because it wasn't enough, whatever it was. So whatever.
Right.
Y'all can save your hot takes for your friends on the message boards. I don't care. Whatever. But I'm just saying, like, I'm sure that experience in and of itself for Kay had to be like, even more of like a what are we doing scenario, right? And like this isn't tenable. This is not a tenable situation for college basketball. I mean, sure, maybe in theory he could have like gone to the NBA or something and coached there. But I think at this point in his career, he's probably just thinking now it's too late for that and ready to go home and garden and hang out with his dog. Because those are literally the only two things that I know of that Coach K does.
Yeah, and be a grandfather.
Well, like and be surrounded by women, as he jokes all the time. But yeah.
The other thing that people have been discussing, the retirement tour itself, right? Roy Williams walks away. He wants to go back to the golf course. Whereas with Mike Krzyzewski, there's going to be a years-long kind of like retrospective on what's going on. This does not surprise me either. I remember when we talked about this after Roy Williams retired, and we started to ponder, okay, you look at the other coaches in the ACC that are up there in age, Jim Boeheim, Leonard Hamilton, Jim Larrañaga at Miami, right? But Coach K was always the obvious choice to talk about. All right, now that Roy's gone, is K next, right? How much longer does he have? And I remember when we talked about this, I said, I think when K does retire, we'll know ahead of time, and there will actually be some sort of retirement tour. Just I'm gonna walk away, and then there'd be this long process for a coach. The surprise is a coach in waiting in John Shire, which we'll get to in a second. But the reason why I was convinced about this is that are you not paying attention to the way Duke operates? Are you not paying attention to the way Coach K operates? He's won 5 national championships. He is a brand. Unlike North Carolina, which prides itself on the whole family dynamic and the continuation of the family. And Carolina had Dean Smith before Roy Williams, and before Dean Smith, there was Frank McGuire. There's always been this long-standing, this is the institution. This is where you want to coach, right? For better or for worse, Duke has transformed into K's program. He is Duke basketball. So when the guy who is Duke basketball decides that he's going to retire, well then, hell yeah, man. You get your retirement tour. I got zero problems with that.
Well,
and I mean they're so into it. I mean, look at this. I mean, they're even treating it like a full-on like movie. Oh, yeah. Right? I mean, look at this poster.
Oh, it's good.
It's pretty
good.
They do a good job. You know what's wild about this though? Like if you look at the poster, it's like, because you're into this, right? Like when a new movie's coming out, the poster gets released, and then like people want to analyze the poster. Like they did this with Star Wars. They did this.
Yeah.
With
Okay. You just stop there because no.
They did it with Marvel movies too, like Infinity War. Like well, what's Iron Man doing, right? Like look at this. This is brilliant. I mean, you got Coach K, and then there's John Shire having won a national championship as a player, and then there's John Shire and his assistant, like in 2015, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is perfect. Like he's like the young Jedi taking over. Here's
the thing too, right? Like, because I've seen some things in my mentions, which are, usually very rational and lovely places, so it's whatever. But listen, Roy and Kay are human beings like all of us. They contain multitudes. They're complicated creatures. They're not just one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I get, it's just so tired, I think, to look at, well, our coach did it to not get attention. Oh, okay, sure, maybe, I don't know. Yes, that's somewhat Roy's personality. I think a retirement tour would have made him uncomfortable. But some of that has to do with Roy's imposter syndrome and just feeling like he's not Dean, and he'll never be Dean, and he doesn't deserve to be treated the way Dean Smith was. By the way, Dean Smith retired in like freaking October.
Yeah.
What about his incoming recruits? Did they know? Does that mean Dean's a monster? No, it doesn't. So don't also come to me with the Coach K thing and say, well, he did this because he had promised recruits. Please stop. Everybody just goes with the best information that they have at the time, and it's fine. And it is great that Coach K gets to do this. I think it's awesome. I wish Roy had gotten to do it, but I understand it's antithetical to his personality. Kay enjoys it a little more. That does not make him a selfish egomaniac. It makes him, a human being. And that's great. I think it's awesome. You have to be an egomaniac kind of to be a coach.
Well, yeah.
You have to believe in yourself in an insane level. Think about Roy, how terrified he would have been if he was not, to some degree, an egomaniac, getting the job at Kansas. He would have run away before the first game started. You or I we would have been terrified. But Roy's like, nah, it's okay. I could do this. You have to have that self-belief. Nobody is this humble saint monk person that is a coach. Everybody just does the best they can. Some are better humans than others, of course, but everybody's human and flawed. We have to stop this nonsense. I can't take it.
You want to feel old?
Oh, no. Oh.
Isn't that adorable? That's adorable. That's very... All right, so John Shire is the coach in waiting. It makes sense. John Shire is highly thought of. He's also there on staff. It makes you wonder if Jeff Capel were still on staff and not had gone to Pitt, would this kind of change how the dynamic plays out?
Maybe.
If Wojo wasn't let go, right? How does this play out? We actually talked to Jeff Goodman, who broke the story today on Stadium as it relates to how this whole coach in waiting thing all played out. He's of the belief that Tommy Amaker probably was the guy that might have gotten some serious consideration, but
I can see that.
But Tommy Amaker doesn't want to follow up Mike Krzyzewski. So the next logical choice would be to be the next coach on staff that people really think highly of. And it's not like John Shire hasn't been an integral part of what they've been doing recruiting-wise. So logically, it would make sense that they want to go in the direction of John Shire in the same way that it was logical that Roy Williams wanted to give Hubert Davis an opportunity. And it takes their ADs, their respective ADs, out of... It actually puts the ADs in an interesting position. With Bubba Cunningham at North Carolina, as we come to find out, he might have had it in his head how things wanted to go, but he was ultimately told, look.
I wonder, do you think there's a degree there of Duke learning from North Carolina in that way?
No,
okay.
I think Duke. Duke always operates the way Duke's going to operate.
That's
right?
true.
And my feelings on this. I think Carolina spends way more time thinking about Duke than Duke spends time thinking about Carolina.
Well, I don't mean it in that sense. I just mean
I know that. What I'm getting at is that kind of thought process comes from. I'm not saying you're doing this, but if that gets put out into the ether, I think oftentimes it comes from a perspective of Carolina people who are always wondering about what Duke's doing. Oh, you're doing this because of this, and yada yada yada. That stuff doesn't matter to me. I think that the dynamics are interesting for the ADs that works out for the ADs. So what we saw with Bubba Cunningham and Hubert Davis, he was essentially told, no, this is how it's going to work. This is what we want. And as he said in the press conference, I learned more about the Carolina family in the last couple of days than I did the previous 10 years. And I think with Duke, it's also a saving grace for the new AD, Nina King, who's she's taking over in September. Because it's not her choice, since this type of thing is preordained, this is how it's going to play out, and obviously she signs off on it. It's not like she's new here. She's been with the Duke program since 2008.
Technically, she hasn't taken over yet.
She hasn't taken over, right? This is a post Kevin.
And I think that probably played into some of that.
But my point is something to consider. If things don't work out for Hubert Davis at Carolina, and if things don't work out for John Shire at Duke, it's not on the ADs. It's how things played out and the dynamics of the jobs and the people that who had the job giving it to the next guy. So in a way, it actually helps Nina King.
Well, I was going to say, when I meant the lesson part I meant, right, is that essentially Bubba Cunningham got out there and was like, we're not going to care if they played here or not. We're going doing a national search, whatever, yada, yada, yada. The names that leaked out for almost the entire, literally every name that leaked out had a Carolina connection, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're like, that's weird. And so it's he came out and said one thing, and then you basically see that it went another way, which is fine. But at the same time, it makes it look like that they were actually, Bubba, about what you said. You know what I mean? And in that way, it almost looks like he got flexed on a little bit. Whereas Nina, no one's going to debate Nina King saying, okay, Coach K, or Kevin White or whatever, saying, yeah, fine, appoint your successor, cool. Like, no one's going to debate that was what Nina King or Kevin White or whomever had to do. You know what I mean? If that's what Coach K wanted. I do think it's interesting, though. I do remember some Duke fans in my mentions when Roy retired saying, oh, it's this Carolina family stuff. Like, that's good and all, and that's fine. But, when K retires, we're going to just hire the best available. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not saying Shire's not good. I like Shire, and I think it makes sense. So I'm not saying that. But they acted like they were going to go out and get some guy with no Duke connection, and I'm like, okay, good luck with that. That's cute.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Who actually has the most amount of pressure right now? Is it Hubert Davis at North Carolina? Is it John Shire at Duke? Or is it Kevin Keatts at NC State?
Oh, like, are we talking this year or in general? Well, obviously Shire's not coaching this year.
From here on out, who's got the most amount?
Because I was going to say this coming year, especially if Manny Bates continues to not be in the transfer portal, I think it's Keatts. I do.
I need people to understand that State fans have been waiting for this moment for as long as I've been doing this. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? Like, it didn't happen at the same time.
I know, right? So every coach that's been hired at NC State, the long game was, hey, keep your stuff together. Like just keep this on the path. Be competitive. Be a top 25 team or fringe top 25. Just make NCAA tournaments.
Be in tournament contention, whatever. Yeah.
Establish yourself. Okay. And then when these two guys, as Mark Godfrey used to say, when the guys move out of the tough neighborhood, well, guess who's the last man standing, right? Now the things open up. Here's your chance. So I kind of have this feeling that a lot of NC State fans are seeing the news and they're now doing one of these to Kevin Keatts going, okay.
Well, and
you gonna do this now?
To be honest, you add in the fact that who knows how Carolina's going to look next year? They certainly lost a lot.
Well, but everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's in the same boat now.
Yeah, more or less. But I was going to say, State's bringing back more established players, in my opinion, than
we thought.
We think.
We thought that.
All right, I'm knocking on the wood. Okay, so don't get out of my mentions, people. Just preempting.
We thought that last year.
That's okay, fair, right? Okay. But I'm just saying, as of now, right?
Yeah.
And what year are we on now with Keatts? 5, 6?
I've lost track now.
I know, but it's been a long day. It's a number, right? Yeah. And so that's something too, where it's they're retiring. It's a transitional time. You got to show something at this point. I think that there's going to be a grace period for sure with Shire and Hubert to a degree. But with Keatts, it's all right, man, let's go. It's
go time.
It's go time.
It's go time. So for Kevin Keatts' sake, it's win. We'll just leave it at that. And then I guess we'll close Panic Room with a question, Lauren. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What was this conversation, you think? Between these two guys. 11 years ago.
I was going to ask when was okay. Oh man.
So 2010 national championship, Duke
so maybe okay.
So it's 2010 national championship. Duke beats Butler, one of the great NCAA tournament endings of all time. It wasn't a pretty game, but it definitely was one of the great endings of all time with the missed shot from Butler. And Brad Stevens has elevated himself to the point where, he's clearly going to be the successor to K. Oh, no, he's going to be the successor to Roy. He's always been the hottest commodity. He goes on to Boston. The news today, and the reason why I think this is kind of funny, is that the news today, to start the day, was that Brad Stevens was bumped out of the coaching position and up to the front office for the Boston Celtics while Danny Ainge is off to do something else. So when we saw that news, or this morning, it's yes, the Coach K retirement tour is all coming together, right?
So you think that they decided they'd break the internet on the same day?
You think so?
K went back to talk to, current Brad Stevens and was all right, here's the plan,
Right?
I'm surprised that didn't get more attention, to be honest, because we had this own discussion within our internal sports chat of like, hey, this might, quash some Duke rumors with Stevens. And I'm like, no.
No, it will not.
If anything, it will intensify them.
Well, actually, shout out to Tate Frazier from Titus and Tate. If I'm following his tweets correctly, and apologies to Tate, I have not had a chance to listen to the podcast in a while.
Yeah, he called it apparently.
Well, it's funny. He had the same thought as you and I as it relates to the whole retirement tour thing, right? But he actually called his shot. Like, this was going to be the year. Mm-hmm. Like, I was just of the opinion, oh yeah, when K retires, it's going to be a retirement tour. He said, apparently back on April 26th, he said, no, this year, Coach K is going to retire.
Yeah, that's good. I wouldn't have called that. Yeah.
I wouldn't have called that either. So shout out to Tate for calling that one. In terms of the actual retirement, he didn't hedge. He's like, it's this year. But if I'm following correctly, he was making the joke that actually this is Coach K is going to take the Boston job.
Oh,
he's going to be the coach. So let's do the math. Jason Tatum, all that stuff. Like, do the math, right? True. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. Hopefully, nobody else will retire.
Knock on wood.
Oh man, when Mike Bray finally calls it a career, we're gonna have a special panel.
No, right now I'm gonna start calling it Bayham. I think someone did this in my mentions because now it's Jim Boeheim and Linehan. Who retires first? I'm just saying. It's Linehan, by the way.
Whose league is this right now?
Tony Bennett's.
Wrong. You know who the new face of the ACC is?
Josh Pastner. Okay.
Josh Pastner is the new face of the ACC. Behind the face shield. Behind the face shield, of course. And hidden behind those amazing mutton chops. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. We will see you all. ACC kickoff? Maybe?
Yeah.
In July? I don't know. We'll figure something out.
That sounds good.
Why not? There's the NBA draft, too. We'll figure something
out. I don't
out.
have plans.
We're not busy. See y'all then.